Welcome everybody to another episode of Cold Emails, Hot Takes. Mitch, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Nils. Looking forward to it.
Okay, great. Yeah, for the viewers listening, Mitch is the co-founder of Remote Synergy and Momentum Group. He helps B2B founders go from generating less than 100K a year to making over $1 million plus a year. He does that by helping implement outbound prospecting systems, sales processes, and scaling high-performing remote sales teams. He's truly mastered the art of outbound, cold email, closing, and managing sales teams. And I'm really looking forward to this conversations and learning a little bit more. And yeah, Mitch, you're ready for a couple of questions?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
And yeah, so first question would be, can you tell me a little bit more about how a B2B founder that is listening right now can build a reliable outbound prospecting machine, to make sure they have the consistent lead flow and the healthy amount of calls on the calendar? How do they build that, and what does it look like?
It's a great question. So um, we like to take a holistic view to or approach to growth, if you will, and we kind of break it down into a few different buckets. The first is traction, the second is process, and the third is scale. Traction being product market fit and resonance, which is going to equal sales meetings. Then you have process, which is your sales process, your sales pitch, your presentation, which is going to equal clients and revenue. And then you have scale, which is kind of your team and your systems and your processes, which allows you to start to grow your business. So, all those things kind of need to be in place in order for businesses to be successful and for them to grow. The advice that I would give to any B2B founder is, especially if they're getting going, is really focus on that traction piece, really focus on getting out there, putting your message in front of potential prospects, and just iterating and iterating and iterating until you figure out what these people resonate with and what they want. And then slowly kind of move into the process phase. Once they're raising their hands, work to get them converted right at 20, 30%. And then from there, once that's in place, then you can focus on kind of right people, finding the sales folks, and then scaling your business up from there. So from a high level, I would say that would be the piece of advice there.
Okay. How about that initial piece of the puzzle, or one of the pillars, traction, like getting the prospecting dialed in, just so people can get, a healthy lead flow. They have daily calls on the calendar. Like, what does that specific machine look like?
Yeah, great question. So it is, once again, kind of to get more granular, I think we break it up into three more categories, which is kind of foundation, your ideal client profile, and then your messaging. So from a foundation perspective, you need to have the tools, you need to have the infrastructure, because you can have the best message, you can have the best product, but if you're not getting your message in front of the ideal prospects, then it's all for nothing, right? So foundation is very, very important. Foundation is everything from, the email sequencer, like instantly that you're using, you're getting your domains in place, making sure that you're staying out of spam. And then ICP, figuring out who you're reaching out to, right? Who is that ideal prospect? Where are you getting their information from? And then what are you saying, right? So those three pieces together are really what make up traction and allows you to, and what allows you to get that growth started.
Mm-hmm. How do you like talking about the ICP and what to say in the message? Like, how do you come up with the ICP in the first place? And maybe people have some idea, like how do they really dial in their ICP?
Yeah, another great question. And I think it's a process of trial and error. I think hypothesis being phase one, if you will, and then trial and error and iteration, right? I think when you start a business, you have a general idea of who you want to sell that to and what type of businesses it would be a best fit for. But that's not always the case, right? It takes some time and some iteration to really get that dialed in. So I would recommend starting off with an ideal avatar. So let's say, you're selling to CMOs, companies of 200 to 300 people, maybe upwards of 500, and running messaging to them for a few weeks or maybe a month and seeing what the effects are of that campaign and kind of doubling down on it if it's working, if it's not, iterating, making some changes, selling to a new person, different message. So there's a lot of process and trial and error, I think, that happens to get very, very clear on who that person is. But with that trial and error, you can really get very laser focused on who that ideal person is for you.
Okay. So let's say you have a new ICP, or maybe you have a past case study, you kind of have an idea of what the ICP is. How do you come up with the message? What do you say in the message? What's your first hypothesis to make sure that you're going to get a reply, that it resonates, that something is going to come back when you send it out?
For sure. Another good point. So I think the word here is incentive. I think, what is the incentive for that person to want to book a call with you, right? If you've hypothesized that a CMO is the person that you're reaching out to, what message is going to resonate with the CEO? Because the message is going to be very different from a CMO to a CEO, right? CEO might care about a completely different metric or incentive. So ensuring that that message is aligned to that person's role, right? For example, if you're reaching out to a CMO, that person might be, more interested in marketing metrics, whereas the CEO might be more interested in bottom line revenue increase. So you want your message to be tailored to that person's role, to what they're in charge of, because that's going to pique their interest, right? If you have a message that is tailored to the CEO and you're sending that to, head of IT, there's going to be a disconnect there. So just make sure that there is a correlation between their role and what would incentivize them to try to book or to want to book a call with you.
Mm-hmm. How do you find that out? What would resonate with that specific role?
I think once again, it kind of goes back to the trial and error, right? It is what I would recommend, or what we recommend to a lot of the folks that we talk to, is, CMO is kind of that person. Let's just use that once again as the example here. I think it makes sense to, or we think it makes sense to create maybe 4 or so different messaging campaigns to that person, all different angles, different metrics, different ideas, and run that for a certain period of time and get that feedback, and then double down on those campaigns that are working and remove those ones that are gaining no traction. By doing that, you're just going to get one step closer to figuring out resonance, and that's really the best way to do it in our experience. Having conversations with these folks as well is another way to do it. So you can just run campaigns to try to book meetings with people, to do market discovery, if you will, and ask them questions about their business in areas that they might be struggling, and use that as ammo to increase the effectiveness of your campaigns.
Okay. Got it. So it would be like you start off by maybe coming up with like 4 messaging, 4 hypotheses of what could resonate, send it out there, look at the feedback, but you also talk to those people on a
Exactly.
yeah. Okay.
If they're willing to jump on that call, right? The approach that we like to take or recommend to folks is, very similar to how you would run a paid advertising campaign. You would have, different avatars, you'd have different messages, different creatives, and you're not going to put all your eggs into one basket, right? It's important to spread those out and then find the winners and double down on the winners.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, I know that you and your team at Remote Synergy also very good at cold email specifically. Are you cool if I ask you a couple of rapid fire cold email related questions about
For sure.
various things? We're going to go very granular.
Let's do it.
But first one would be, what are your favorite B2B data sources?
Okay, so couple ways that we collect data. We like to use Apollo, we like to use Seamless, and we also like to use a couple different scraping tools that connect directly to LinkedIn.
Okay, got it. Which are the scraping tools?
So one of the scraping tools, yeah, no problem. One of the scraping tools that we like to use is Grow Me Organic. One of the reasons is they have a unlimited export or scraping functionality, so you can scrape as much data as you want, which is really enticing.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yep.
Great. What are some of your favorite subject lines or opening lines?
Yeah, so we like to use quick question for first name. I think it's one that is used quite a bit out there, but it seems to be the most effective for us. We've been doing cold emailing for a long time now and tried all different approaches, but by putting the person's first name in there, I find that piques their interest enough to open that email, and it just snowballs from there.
Okay. What are some of your favorite call to actions in a cold email?
Interest call to action. So instead of sending the calendar link, we don't like to send links in general. We find that decreases deliverability. So we leave links completely out, and we just say something along the lines of, would you be interested in hopping on a quick 15-minute call? Something along those lines, and we find that to be a lot more effective than the alternatives.
Okay. What are your favorite follow-up messages in general?
So we like to keep follow-up messages fairly succinct. We just find that they are the most effective. So we use thoughts, question mark, first name. We'll obviously use template tags there. You can create value follow-ups. It's either one or the other. It's either short form, like super short, one follow-up or two follow-ups. If nothing, then we remove them. And one of the reasons we do that is we want to keep our sequences fairly low in terms of volume to kind of stay below those thresholds. But the alternative to that is to do value-added follow-up. So creating as much value as you possibly can, saying, hey, so-and-so, you might be interested in this. We just helped a company achieve X, Y, Z, leveraging case studies, creating some tangibility there. That's another way to follow up.
Okay. In those value follow-ups, do you mainly mention case studies or stories of other people, similar people that you helped, or what other type of value do you have in there?
Yeah, great question. It's typically around case studies and results. And this goes to just writing the cold, and we might get into this at some point, talking about writing the actual email itself. But if you do have case studies, relevant case studies, leverage those as much as you can, whether that's in the initial email or the follow-up emails. But that's really what's going to pique people's interest.
Okay, got it. And maybe additional question to that, how do you talk about these case studies? Is it more like a long form story that you say, hey, we had this person, they were at point A, we helped them through the process, they're now at point B, they're super happy? Or is it more like succinct one or two sentences, hey, we got XYZ, we increased revenue by 30% in less than 3 months? You do more like the long form case study or the short form snappy case study?
We've had the most resonance to the short form case studies. The long form ones can work. We've just had more success with the short form. So more succinct, straight to the point, something tangible. So once again, you want to tie it to what that person that you're reaching out to is going to find intriguing. Whether it be revenue increase, or if you're a lead gen agency and you're selling to the head of sales, we increase lead flow by X. They might not really care. The sales guy might not care about revenue increase. He wants to know how many sales leads he can get his team, right? So creating some tangibility and some making it relative to that person's role is the most effective way to do it that we've found anyway.
Okay, great. Mitch, once you have this prospecting machine up and running and functional, and the business has, let's say, 3, 5, 8, 10 calls a day on the calendar, and the next step is making sure that the close rate is good as well. Let's say around 30% for a high ticket offer. So once that lead flow is solved, how do you go about making sure the closing ratio, that aspect, also gets solved?
Yeah. So going back to what I was kind of breaking things down to earlier, and kind of in kind of like 3 phases, when it comes to conversions, the 3 main phases that we look at are process, presentation, and then closing. Presentation and closing are very, very similar, but closing is kind of its own beast. So process is the second someone raises their hand, what sequence of events happen, right? What email did they receive? Where do they go in your CRM? Who's in charge of reaching out to that person, right? That process is very, very important, and it should be very, very clear and dialed in, especially if you want to maximize closing. Because if somebody books a call with you and they're not getting an email from the right person at the right time, that can ruin everything. So process is very, very important, and that's the first thing that needs to be in place. The actual presentation, so once you get them on that call, how are you doing the discovery process, right? What questions are you asking, and how are you driving those questions? How are you transitioning from your discovery phase into the actual presentation side of things, so the demo? And then from there, how are you converting that person to a closed deal, right? So what are some of the things that you're doing to get them over the finish line? So those 3 things in combination are what allow you. That's what will allow you to convert leads at 20% plus. In terms of how to derive those discovery questions and what your pitch should look like, that's a whole nother topic that'd probably take a long
Probably
time
like
to
a 10-hour
dive
conversation,
into.
right?
Exactly. But from a high level, I think you get the idea.
Yeah. Okay. And then, right, you have the pillar dialed in with the lead flow. Your closing ratio is healthy. How do you scale from there? What's the next move?
Yeah, so it's bodies and systems. So sales ops, if you will. So hiring is very, very important. Figuring out, who's going to be a great fit for your company, right? There are a lot of companies looking for salespeople. There's a lot of salespeople looking for jobs. From a business perspective, what is going to allow you to stand out from all these other companies out there? So in terms of hiring, there's a couple things that we focus on. Is creating a compelling hiring process that, the old school hiring process is kind of dead, where you just post a general job description on a job board and then you drive them to a one-to-one interview. It's very, very time consuming, and a lot of business owners just don't have the time to do that. So we like to create processes that are automated, that will, allow the founder to take a lot of their time back, but will also allow them to bring in the right people. It's important that when you are presenting the offer, that you're very, very clear on, as a business, what do you guys believe in, right? What are your values? What type of culture do you want to have? And those things are going to allow you to attract those good people, right? It's very, very important that not only do you have a salesperson that is, a qualified salesperson that's going to do a good job, but they're also aligned with the rest of the company. That's really, really important to ensure that the whole thing works together. So kind of building that and starting to find those good people. Once you've found those people, it's really plugging them into that process that you've built, right? Going back to talking about the conversions and the traction side of things, that system is well defined, so those people should be able to plug into that fairly smoothly. And then from there, it's really about managing and training, right? It's, what are you tracking, right? What KPIs are you tracking? How are you tracking those KPIs? How are you doing your morning sales meetings? How are you doing your weekly sales meetings? How are you, doing your monthly performance reviews, right? All those little things add up to ensure that your sales team is operating holistically and allows you to just continue to grow and grow and grow. If there's any piece in there that's broken, it's like a leaky hose, right? It's just, the pressure is not going to come out, the deal flow is not going to come out. So you need to ensure that kind of all those things are in place.
Okay, got it. Before we wrap up this question, I want to ask you a more like general mindset question. You recently launched a group community called Momentum. Right? Momentum is a community helping people to gain momentum in things from getting started in sales, building sales teams, or scaling their business. For someone, a B2B founder that's listening right now, or somebody starting out right now who's feeling a bit stuck, or they feel like they're not in the zone, in the flow, in momentum, what advice would you give them to get into that zone where progress is there, things move fast, where they're excited? In business in general, how can they get momentum?
Yeah,
How can anybody get momentum?
great
How can I
question.
get more momentum?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. I think the easiest way to answer that is routine, is the right routine. And people often overlook the benefits of a really, really good routine, right? Starting a business is not easy. Getting into flow is not easy. Gaining momentum is not easy. It's, compounding, right? Every single day, if you do the same thing, the right things every single day, those things compound, and that will slowly start to push you in the right direction. In terms of what that routine is, it's going to be different to everybody, but just ensure that you're doing a few things. You're waking up at a good time. You are first thing in the morning. I'm a big proponent of cold showers. Take a cold shower, get some good food into you, sit down at your desk, do deep work for a couple of hours, create something, write something. Even just like adding those small things into your daily routine, and those things compounding and building off of those. Then maybe in the afternoon, you add in, a run, or you add in cold calling 20 people, or you add in emailing 20 people, and just be consistent and do those things every single day. that will push you in the right direction. And I would say that would be the number one thing that I would recommend to anybody.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, Mitch, it was really awesome to have you on the show, learning from you, hearing from you. You dropped a lot of value. For people who want to learn more, where should they go?
Yeah. So if you are, I'll break this up into a couple of buckets. If you are just getting into, you're just starting a business, you are maybe just getting into the sales world, or you're really not sure, what you want to do in life, I would recommend joining Momentum. Start to join the community calls and participate there. I think that's a great place to start. If you are a business owner, as Nils mentioned at the beginning, if you're, around that 100K per year mark, I would recommend our remote synergy community, where everything is focused around some of the things that we talked about today. You can check out our website. I have a YouTube channel, Instagram, whatever you want. Shoot me a message there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, for everybody listening, I highly recommend learning more from Mitch, and I'll add all these links in the description. You can click there and check it out. And yeah, thanks for your time. And it was great chatting, and I will talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Nils. Thanks for having me. And just wanted to say great work with Instantly. It's by far the best product on the market in terms of email sequencing. So you guys did an amazing job, and we love the tool.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks for the kind words. And I was also having you on. Talk soon.
Perfect. Thanks, Nils. Bye.
Thanks.